let's talk about one of the issues that I've been following for a while, and I finally have time to talk about it now. Is we all know um, why Dear Leader is so enamored with dictators like Bolsonaro and Orban because they follow the 20th century dictator model. They're just thieves with political power. Okay. In the end, what did almost every dictator of the 20th century do to their country? Fleece the national economy, fleece their central banks, their treasuries, the economy at large. They just try to put it in their own pocket. Um, when they get all upset because Orban just lost power, they lost one of their homies that justify because they keep mirroring out the dictator. Well, that's the way it's done here, and we think this country is one run wonderfully. They actually said that in press conference before. They think Hungary is a well-run country, even though every other country in the EU looks at Hungary and goes, broken dictatorship with a thief at the helm. Okay. Orban hijacked the military. He hijacked the state attorneys. He hijacked the economy. He hijacked the news and the television. This should all be sounding familiar. Okay. And why he hijacked those things in Hungary was because he was the crime boss leading the crime wave. Like I said, like most dictators do. Okay. You have to realize what's been going on since Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche in 2025 have been running the DOJ. You might as well, like Pete Hegseth's fake changing of the Department of Defense to Department of War. It's still the Department of Defense. Okay. Legally, it is. It was named by statute, so they don't get to unname it without clearing the statute. So they should just rename the DOJ right now Crime Incorporated. Brought to you by Dear Leader, Pornstar Humper, and MAGA. Okay. Because they're not really interested in the mission of the traditional DOJ, and that's putting it lightly. Okay. Although there's no formal rule written down, of course, that, rich white boys get a pass. Pretty much the DOJ has been set up now that it will never prosecute anybody in Trump's orbit, anybody who has been a campaign donor for Trump. There's really no laws here that any traditional DOJ, any traditional attorney general would not be doing this with cases at the federal level. And it seems now that the government is exclusively focused on what they perceive as the worst crimes: immigration, government fraud, but if it's only committed by a minority. If you're rich and white and you commit government fraud, it's all good. If you're rich and white and you're a campaign donor or political supporter of Dear Leader, all good. And there's an entire list here of things that they're just refusing to prosecute. And there's political and corruption reasons why. Politically corrupt reasons why. Okay. They don't seem to be interested in anymore, and this has been reported by both by Reuters multiple times, that Trump, Bondi, and Blanche have basically defanged the political corruption watchdogs at DOJ. They practically don't exist anymore. Unless you're an enemy, a political enemy of Donald Trump, you have no risk of the DOJ looking into your political corruption activities. Okay. The Reuters found that the publicly The public integrity section was stripped with most of its power, reduced from more than 30 attorneys to less than 5. They had 5, then 1 left, so they have less than 5 now. Lost authority to file new cases. Okay. The Public Corruption, Bribery, and Campaign Financing Unit has been blocked from. I'm sorry, my wife just won't stop doing that. The public integrity section does not have permission at all to file new cases. That's a hint. If you're publicly corrupt, you're involved with bribery, including Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito on the Supreme Court. You've done something dirty with campaign financing, like several politicians have been caught doing, and several donors have been caught doing. Okay. And you actively attempt to interfere like Tina Peters or the Riverside County Sheriff in California or the other Goombas in Georgia, in Colorado, and Arizona, the federal DOJ will not even open a case on you. If Tina Peters repeated her crimes, or a Tina Peter-like object repeated the election crimes today, they would not even open a case on it. Okay, Georgia won't even open up a case. Arizona, okay, where many people were held to account and found guilty of felonies in Arizona, the DOJ won't even open up a case on these issues anymore. Okay, big reporting on Reuters on that if you want to read up and follow that. The most obvious case of political corruption that's just not being enforced is Eric Adams, the former mayor and corrupt police manager from New York PD. Okay. They just flat out ordered the charges to be dropped after Eric Adams bent the knee. Okay. Even the attorneys inside the DOJ are going, this is just a bargain deal for Eric Adams. He was told to proselytize Trump as dear leader and bow down to him. The second he did, he got a pardon. And the case just literally went away. The foreign bribery, the foreign campaign payments act and all that kind of stuff. First, they put a 180-day pause on all new investigations. This is for foreign bribery. Why? Because we know people are putting money into Trump's meme coin. And that includes leaders in Argentina, Brazil, Hungary, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and any other crook or cartel in the country who wants to pay them off. So to prevent Trump from being discovered taking foreign bribes, or anybody in office taking bribes, they literally put a 180-day dead stop to any work on foreign bribery investigations. And now they've shut down 25 different investigations in the first 6 months of Bondi's tender. And ProPublica is reporting that the Trump's DOJ under Bondi and Blanche have dropped a total of 23,000 criminal investigations, most of them white-collar crime, foreign bribery, foreign interference, political corruption. Okay, you see where we're going with this? They've decided that the cartels are the only foreign entity they will investigate. They will not investigate even open cases. They closed the cases that involved any kleptocracy investigation. Instead, redirecting the entire unit to work on cartels. Okay, so it's less forward on corrupt foreign elites, the Russian oligarchs, the henchmen for Orban, the players and the con artists for Bolsonaro's and Milei in Argentina and Bolsonaro's in Brazil. All those people that are now, because this is all what Paul Manafort, Trump's advisor in the first term, got caught and sent to prison for before he got pardoned. Okay, so everything Paul Manafort did and all his buddies did is now de facto legal under Trump, Bondi, and Blanche. I know Bondi isn't there anymore, but the method stands. Again, because why? Because both the president and the first lady have a rug pull meme scheme going on. There is no crypto regulation going on right now. If you get rug pulled, if you get defrauded, if you get ripped off, and an alpha bro takes your money, the DOJ says that's cool. Okay. They claim they're still doing outright thefts and investor victimization and terrorist financing, but no, unless it directly involves an immigrant or a cartel, which Trump hates, they're not doing cases. And they're not doing cases because their own memos and reporting by Reuters show that they just waved their hands, go, we're not a digital asset regulator. We don't know what to do. And they've just walked away from programmatic fraud cases. As long as it involves crypto, you can legally defraud in a sense, because who's going to come after you? The DOJ just threw its hands up and go, oh, we can't do anything with crypto. What is crypto? We don't know anything about crypto. Oh, but we'll get the cartels if they use crypto. But just not the politicians, the foreign actors, the foreign influencer, the foreign bribers. They can do crypto as much as they want. They dropped all cases, shut down enforcement, do not even care if the anti-abortion protesters threaten violence, do violence, go full Robert Rudolph and drop bombs at buildings. That's not a DOJ problem anymore. Okay, they're too busy enforcing immigration and complaining about woke. Right-wing anti-abortion terrorist, free pass. The police have the complete permission of the DOJ to go back and kick the living shit out of anybody they want. Now, they're doing this all across the board for law enforcement to do what? Of course, protect ICE. Okay? They can't blame a city cop for murdering a woman making a U-turn in a street like ICE murdered Renee Good. So they're just dropping all cases against cops across the board. Okay? Cops have free reign to rape, rob, and murder on duty under the color of authority while wearing a badge. They do not give a shit at the DOJ. Okay? They have closed investigations in Phoenix, Trenton, Memphis, Mount Vernon, Oklahoma City, and Louisiana State Police. Okay? If the victim was black, it was the first case to be closed. Are you getting the pattern here, America? You understand what's going on here? Okay? There will be no voting rights enforcement whatsoever. It's gone. Okay? They reassigned the senior civil rights attorneys that did the voting rights enforcement to other jobs, and now the voting rights office is an empty box. Okay? There is no voting rights suppression of black voters. They even went as far as to withdraw from a Georgia voting rights lawsuit that alleged the 2021 law discriminated against black voters. They completely abandoned the case. Anybody where any minority is affected, why? Because now they want women to have a passport, a driver's license, 3 credit cards, proof of residential indicia, their own power bill, their own mortgage, and maybe we'll let you to vote. Maybe we'll let you vote. Okay, that's why the office that should contain 25 attorneys doing voting rights enforcement is empty. Okay. All the attorneys were picked up and put somewhere else. Okay. To go enforce the crimes, all the crime being committed by the Mexicans, all the crime being caused by the Somalis, all the crimes being created by the Haitians, all the crimes being done by the Venezuelans. How can 4 separate groups be committing 100% of the crime? But this is now the brand and practice at Trump's DOJ. Forget there's an EPA. Forget there's an Environmental Protection Act. All DOJ environmental justice directives were rescinded. They halted all pending litigation. They reassigned senior environmental section leaders, cut the money out of their DOJ programs. Then they just are declining every criminal case that comes to the DOJ now under the EPA, including just flat out illegal dumping, poisonous dumping. Do what you want. You can pollute what you want. You can destroy what you want. You can make people sick. The DOJ does not care. The problem is minorities committing crimes who are immigrants in this country, and the crimes being committed by people who don't support Donald Trump. So again, ProPublica has a whole expose on this, and 23,000 criminal matters were declined in the first 6 months, and it's gotten worse since. They literally went through in February 2025 and ordered an older open cases review, and basically ordered all open cases they didn't like closed. If it wasn't going after a Somali in Bangor, Maine, or a Somali in Minneapolis, Minnesota, they closed the case. If it wasn't against the Mexican politician that they wanted to accuse of working for the cartels, which could be true, that's happened before, they'll do that case, but they won't do anything else. Dear leader, porn star Humber's broken, societal, xenophobic, con artist, corrupt crime spree is now the running instructions of DOJ. So the DOJ is part of the DOJ is part of the officially part of the problem now. If you're rich, especially if you're rich and white, don't worry about the IRS and the DOJ coming after you. Okay? All tax enforcement for anybody with any bit of money has been eliminated. Okay? There's a reason why these companies get a negative tax rate. Corruption in Congress. There's a reason why the ownership class pays no taxes, because they can file whatever they want. They know they're not going to get audited. Okay? A couple of years ago, did you know the most likely persona to be audited by the IRS was a single mom taking a child tax credit? Not a 100 millionaire or a billionaire taking massive tax schemes and showing losses where there were no real losses, through carried interest deductions and other tax schemes. Yeah. Now this is the coup de grace. You ready for this? They shut down the DOJ working group and the organized crime drug task forces that they stopped going after certain countries' illegally imported phenol precursors. I'm going to eliminate phenol. I'm going to go to war with Mexico. I'm going to murder fishermen in the Caribbean to stop the phenol. Except before he started murdering fishermen in the Caribbean, he shut down the legal group and the working group of the DEA that works to prevent the precursors arriving in the first place, so you don't even get phenol as a final product. The only way we ever eliminated a drug, and that was temporary, some British chemist figured out how to do it years later, it's back on the market. The only drug we ever took off the market in the drug war was Quaaludes, because we got Vietnam, the last place that started that was making the precursor, to stop shipping it. Okay, so the only method you really have to stop phenol, getting the precursors agreed to with the source countries not to ship them to Mexico, okay, that's not a thing anymore. So if you think you stop fentanyl because you're murdering people on fishing boats, no, you're not. It's absurd. It is absolutely absurd, especially when you shut down the fucking precursor investigations and not working with these other countries to stop shipping that chemical starter ingredient to Mexico. How does this fucking make sense? It doesn't. It's the whole policy is complete bullshit. Now, it doesn't zero out all phenol enforcement, but yeah, this precursor program, they want the drug trafficking so they can have something to complain about, so they can order up more federal cops as militia troops. Okay? Because if he makes it through the fucking midterm, you're going to see the DEA and the Border Patrol be funded like ICE. You're going to have each one of these cop departments at the federal level turned into Goomba squads, and they're going to be funded like the Marine Corps. Okay. Now, just like ICE, when these agencies go down that road, are they going to do real things? No, ICE isn't doing anything real. Okay. I just read the report today that they've arrested thousands of people. Almost nobody's getting convicted. And the biggest reason, they're lying in the reports. Video shows something else. Every single witness saw something different than what the ICE agents did. Okay, and the attorneys are going, no. If you don't stop the upstream supply chain to the cartels, you're never going to even touch fentanyl. Oh, by the way, which is mostly carried into this country by mules who are white working class Americans. When they say, hey, we're focusing on the real crimes, well, when you start looking at the numbers, this is just like ICE is race-based enforcement. They have no probable cause. They have no reasonable suspicion to stop you. You're brown. Good enough. Okay. What do you think they're doing over here in the fraud in the taxpayer-funded systems? Those investigations. There's real evidence that selective, radicalized political framing is surrounding this whole anti-fraud push. And they keep going after groups of people, telling you that this group of non-whites is the problem, is the source of all your problems. Okay. We've heard them as outright vilify certain groups and blame them for all the crime. It's just one of his favorite little buzz phrases, all the crime. He just picks a minority group and goes, all the crime. One of the things that Bondi, Blanche, Miller, Vaught, Trump himself, JD Vance, all these motherfuckers, what they don't want to tell you about the taxpayer fraud in Minnesota, they don't want to tell you who led it. Her name is Amy Bach, Amy with 2 E's. So you can tell it's a white chick, right? Yeah, it's a white American woman, native born. She led the scheme. Yeah, it was a big scheme, $200+ million. The ringleader was a white chick. All the Somalis are committing all the crime. You getting the con yet? And they keep using language like blue state immigrants. Okay. They're using this tax fraud run, the ringleader, white chick, run by a white chick. They're trying to use this as the excuse to send more and more federal resources into those states. And it's becoming apparent that it's a scheme of political power and abuse. And it's becoming apparent to some of the Republican governors, like Oklahoma Republican Governor Stitt is now calling this out as a 10th Amendment issue. Do you just get to make up shit? Do you get to ignore details like the ringleader's a white woman born and raised in Minnesota and use that as an excuse to evade a state because they didn't vote for you? I mean, Stitt said it himself. He was like, I'm sure Oklahomans wouldn't like if Minnesota's National Guard ended up in Tulsa. And I'm going, damn straight you wouldn't, especially when they're there based on a lie. They're there because of a lie, a grievance, and animus. They're not there because of a law enforcement problem. They're twisting information to make you believe the people Trump lows down to his core are responsible for all the bad. Even though when I walked you through what they're not investigating, when I talk about, I don't know, crypto, is that a bunch of immigrant Venezuelans doing crypto, or is that the alpha bro influencers? It seems to be the alpha bro influencers, right? Right? You know, Paul Manafort wasn't Somalian, wasn't Mexican, wasn't Haitian, and he was all involved in the foreign influence, the foreign bribery, the foreign funneling of money to politicos and affiliated minions. Okay, who do you think's taking the kleptocracy money that's going back and forth? We learned this week from the new prime minister-elect in Hungary that Orban was taking Hungarian state funds to fund CPAC in America. What else do you need to know? Okay. What do you think the chances that an anti-abortion protester is an immigrant who just crossed the border and it's not a white evangelical with a chip on their shoulder? Or a white Opus Dei type Catholic with a chip on their shoulder or a mental problem? Police misconduct. Yeah, that can be anybody today. Black cops love beating on people. Look at what happened in Louisville. They beat that guy to death for sport, even though the city cameras were looking at him. They didn't even care. They just jumped out, beat the guy to death, and laughed about it. Black guys beating to death a black guy. A lot of the older pending investigations they just closed and wrote off, a lot of them involved people attached to Trump's orbit. Okay, but they had to make it look. Oh, thanks for mentioning Opus Dei, Amy says. No one ever seems to talk about it. Yes, and I really am groovy on Pope Leo. I like the last Pope too, even though I'm not Catholic anymore. He just said some of the right things, you know. Pope Leo is officially disbanding Opus Dei. He's going to shit can the organization, which is good because it's the cult inside the cult. It needs to go. They're a dangerous right-wing fanatic group under the guises of Catholicism. Love Leo. A lot of people do. I like Leo that he's standing up to Trump and he's not backing down. I mean, this is a Chicago Pope. I don't think the Chicago Pope's going to fold that easy. So JD Vance and dear leader Pornstar Humper bit off way more than they could chew in this argument with the Pope. And it's pissing people off. The whole his Jesus bullshit in the render with the seraphims up above his head. Yeah, Opus Dei's money. Yeah. Yeah, that's another issue. Yeah, so I think they're way out of their league going after Pope Leo. Who is it? Cardinal Tolan, I think it was, New Jersey, went off this weekend. Went off on Trump and Vance. And it was basically, if you read between the lines, it's like, who the hell do you think you're talking to? And two, how do you think you can talk for us? I'm like, good for you. Good for you. Now, even though they've shut down enforcement, and even though, my research, Hungary was supporting CPAC with direct money, the new president said it will stop. Yes. Yeah, they were taking state funds and sending it. That's what am I saying? Foreign influence, foreign bribery, foreign interference in political systems. That's why the DOJ has completely shut that down, because they know the money trail. And that's not a new money trail. Paul Manafort set that up years ago. That's why he went to prison. Okay. There's a reason why Trump has modeled himself after Orban, because the whole criminal cabal funnels from Nigel Farage and Orban through Bannon up to Trump. So yeah, they if you are in league with dear leader Pornstar Humper, you have no fears whatsoever of getting investigated by the DOJ. You have no fears of getting investigated by the IRS. Why? Because they won't even open up a case. In some cases, they can't open up a case because nobody works in that division anymore. Okay? They've just, you put a crook in office, America. Then they're dismantling the Department of Justice and letting the other crooks get away with anything they want. And this is on top of the mass pardons of the insurrectionists. This is on top of telling us that fentanyl and drugs are ruining this country. And then he pardons the Silk Road asshole because the Libertarian Party chick shook her tits at him at Mar-a-Lago. And he goes, oh, okay, I'll let him go. He owed $250 million in fines and restitutions. With the pardon went his fines and restitutions. He walked away from all his punishment, not just jail, but his fines and his restitution too, scot-free. Why? Quid pro quo. There are intermediaries that are taking money to make introductions at the White House to get your name on the pardon list. Okay. Are they ever going to be investigated for this? No, because the public corruption section has been shut down. Even if they're not shut down, there's a blanket prohibition of opening new cases. Are you getting the con yet, America? Christ. So that's where we're at. You have a known criminal, a convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, a suspected pedophile, a member of the Epstein crowd and the Epstein class. And because they know he's a gang-leading crook, they've shut down the DOJ except to go after working class people and minorities Trump doesn't like. Okay? You voted for this, you dumb motherfuckers. You understand that? You voted for this. You buy a house in Texas. This is one of the cases I read about in Reuters. They bought homes in Texas. The builder openly defrauded the buyers of the homes. But since most of the buyers of the homes were Hispanics, the company doesn't get punished and they owe no restitution, no fines, and they don't have to give anybody their money back. And unfortunately, as you go down these cases on Reuters and ProPublica, the cases get worse and worse and stranger. Some cases seem like this is straight up DOJ's alley. This is what they should be doing. Nope. So this goes again to the midterms. Do you want to live in a gang-infested fucking country when the worst gang in the country is the federal government? The worst gang is the White House and the DOJ. I told you 10 years ago when he was coming up into the political system, he speaks and talks like he's fucking Tony Soprano running a crack street gang. Nobody wanted to stand up to the guy to this minute. Now you have just open criminality as long as you're a supporter of the regime. If you're considered a political ally, you're fine. I don't know why my camera keeps doing this. You're fine as long as you have some affiliation, some influence orbit with dear leader himself, his cabinet members, his minions, or his sycophants. Then you don't have to worry about the law applying to you. But if you're a poor minority to step to this country, we will literally come after you with the full might of the federal government. The guy who didn't pay $100 million in taxes, no problem. Okay? And probably a white guy, to admit it, right? Okay? When he doesn't pay $100 million in taxes, they're going to turn around and find a minority mother for taking that child tax credit. What do you want America to be? Okay? Because this is already a worst case scenario in America. This is far worse than Watergate. This is far worse than Iran-Contra. In Nixon's time, yeah, they had biases, no doubt. Okay, in Reagan's time, you had some open criminality, no doubt. Neither Nixon or Reagan tried to dismantle the DOJ and only go after minorities the president didn't like. That's what's happening now. Because if you're a home builder and the CEO it keeps going to Mar-a-Lago, you cannot do any wrong. You can rip off your customers. That's fine. And remember, it's not just you won't get adjudicated, you won't get investigated. In some cases, a case will not even be opened because there's a ban on opening cases or there's nobody that works in that job role anymore at the DOJ. Yes, corrupt but legal. That's exactly what Project 2025 is. Legalizing corruption. That's the whole point to 2025. Where did they get Project 2025? Orban and Hungary. Oh, what did Orban do? Oh, we should do that. Why did he take over the Kennedy Center and put his name on it? He didn't learn that by himself. Why did he start attacking every university and every newspaper he didn't like? He didn't think about that himself. Trump is basically a really shitty copycat. A dickhead, con artist, felon copycat. Okay? So when people go, oh, it's not that bad. No, it's actually far worse than they realize. Now, this is just one aspect of it, but when you start putting it all together, this gets pretty awful. And being a retired cop, seeing the fact that as long as you're in orbit of dear leader or one of his political operatives and you wear a suit and tie, and most likely you're white. Eric Adams wasn't white, I know, but there's a tendency there. Marianne says, Trump wants to kill off or otherwise destroy the middle class and the merely wealthy. In Trump's utopia, there will be an Epstein class of billionaires and servants class eking out a living, nothing in between. 100% true, Marianne. 100% true. I've said that already a dozen times. He loathes. This is the funny thing. The Red Hat Rubes, his own supporters, he hates those people the most. He doesn't want a plantation in Louisiana or Mississippi. He wants America to be the plantation, and he wants to be the plantation owner. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm saying this is what I fear from this guy. A total hostage taking and an ownership cabal that resembles the Ceausescus in Romania. Okay. So I'll drop a couple of these links when this video posts. If you want to follow up on the ProPublica essay or the reporting by Reuters, it's good reading. But realize when you read that the DOJ is doing something, they're doing the political bidding of dear leader porn star Humper and his orbit. They're not actually doing the work of the DOJ. It has nothing to do with law enforcement anymore. It has to do with corruption and corrupt politics. Okay, be independent, vote independent, run for local offices independent. Okay, share the word, share good news sources. Okay, get your family and friends off of shitty news sources. It doesn't help anybody. Bad influencers, bad cable TV news stations, get them off that shit. Okay? America is at stake now. When you see this Iran bullshit, he's willing to create a global recession and a global economic crisis because he has to flex. He's doing this shit at the DOJ. He's having his federal Goombas murder people in the street. If it gets worse than this, we're in trouble. And our midterm elections is our only way out. So until next time, please, 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 please think about it. Peace.